Check, check, 1, 2, check, check. All right. Uh-oh, I'm getting feedback. Oh boy, where's this coming from? There we go. All right, let me... Oh, my mic's running a little hot today, apparently. All right, can you guys hear me okay? All right, everybody, welcome to the stream. So, I just wanted to let you guys know what's going on with our new firmware package. So there's going to be another stream going over all of the big changes that we made. So we kind of reorganized everything, added a bunch of new printer support, like 4 new printers in this next release we just dropped. And I think I need to turn off, let me turn off my little announcement thing here. All right. Sorry, my that tablet's linked to my Home Assistant, so it announces when anytime a door opens or closes, so or if something's left open. So, if you guys look at our new firmware pack, you'll see a bunch of new options in the firmware. You also notice that the Arduino IDE is now 1.8.10. So let me switch over to my main screen here. So I have the firmware loaded here. This is the latest one from our site. And if you notice now, if we go to boards, we have Anet 1.0, which we had before, and now we have OptiBoot. So what OptiBoot does is it's an optimized bootloader for the Anet boards to get us more program space. So I'll show you what that looks like. So I just uncommented the Anet A8, and I'm going to go ahead and tell it to verify the sketch, which is going to compile it for me and tell me exactly how much space we have. And you can see here, it says sketch uses 77% of program space, maximum is 12696, or 126976. So if you have previously flashed your bootloader with our old package, then you're going to want to continue to use the 1.0. However, if you do want to get a little more program space, what you can do is select the OptiBoot option. And then if we look here, we're going to get more program space. We're going to get about 1.5K of extra space. Now the thing is, if you upload firmware compiled for the V1.0, the Anet V1.0, to an OptiBoot board, it's not going to work. And the same thing if you upload one compiled for the OptiBoot to one with the Anet bootloader. So if you want to use this new OptiBoot option, you're going to run through and flash your bootloader again. We do have a video on our website here. So if you go to bootloader.th3dstudio.com, it'll take you here to our page, and there's a video. The process is exactly the same for the OptiBoot. You're just going to select that instead of the V1.0. So if I was burning my bootloader, I would go in here, select my OptiBoot, select my programmer if I'm using my Arduino, and then the port that my Arduino's on, and then I would hit Tools and burn bootloader. So once you have that on there, what you're able to do then is run more options. So let me show you here. So if you noticed before, we were taking up 77% of our program space, and now we're only at 75%. So that gives us a little extra space to put more features in. So what I'm going to be doing in the future, now that we have this, is I'm going to let people get everything updated and get it all flashed. And once most people are running that, I'm going to have options in here that will allow you to put more features on. Now, I was able to get junction deviation and S-curve acceleration working on the standard Anet bootloader, and I'll show you what that looks like. So we're still within the program space on the old bootloader. And OptiBoot was something that was added by the Anet hardware package. This isn't something that we, went and changed. This was a recent development and we integrated it into our pack. So I'm just showing you here. So like I have my A8 Plus with Easy ABL and all the other options on. So like, you know, linear advance and S-curve acceleration, junction deviation, and what those two options are is a newer way of controlling the motion of your steppers, the way of handling jerk and acceleration and deceleration, which gives you a little faster print speed and a little better print quality. But you can see here we still are able to fit that onto the standard bootloader. So what you need to just make sure now, I did not update in here to use the OptiBoot, because what happens is if you flash an OptiBoot firmware on people that are using the 1.0, which is what we had before, you're going to have problems. You're going to have to reflash your bootloader, and I don't want to get a million tickets saying, hey, my board is just blank screen now, because what will happen is you'll override the bootloader. I see John Glassy asking, we'd be able to do that for other boards. So the Anet boards are the only ones that didn't have an OptiBoot bootloader on them, and I'll show you this right here. So I have the board text files for each of these boards. So we see our definition here of the V1.0 and with the V1.0 with the OptiBoot. So you can see the maximum size here, and this is in kilobytes, so 130,048 versus 126,976. And I knew this question was going to come up, which is why I have this open. If you notice here, we have Sanguino 1284p, and we're already at 130,048. So we're already at the OptiBoot bootloader. If you look here, it's already using the OptiBoot bootloader for the Sanguino, which is what all these other 1284p boards use, like the Wanhouse and the Crealities and other Melzi type boards. So the reason you can't use Sanguino on the Anet boards is because their chips are set up a little different. So if you look here, and we got these fuses, okay, and these are hexadecimal values here that AVR dude uses. If you notice, they're similar, but they're different. So like specifically, the low fuses on the standard 1284 Sanguino board definition is 0xFF, where the other one for the Anet is 0xD6. So we have different fuses set. So if you flash the Sanguino 1284p bootloader on your Anet board, it's not going to work correctly, which is why we have to have the separate definition. I don't know why Anet changes and uses a different set of fuse bits versus others, but they do, so this is what we have to use. Which is why the Anets have a separate one. They're the same exact processor on the Anet boards versus the Creality boards. You know, I have the Anet 1.7 actually, or the 1.5 sitting here. This is their older one that you guys are used to seeing, and I also have their new 1.7, which does replace the 1.5. So if you have an Anet A8, your board burns up. This is a lot nicer board. They added a fuse, beefier terminals. I'm actually pretty impressed with this board. It's still 1284p. They're okay chips, you know, they get the job done, but this is a lot nicer designed board. They've got a fuse here. The stock firmware does come with thermal protection on the hot end. It does not on the bed, and I'm kind of torn on the choice to disable it on the bed because they do have a fuse on here, and if your bed shorts out or anything else shorts out, it should blow this fuse. But if you flash our firmware on there, you're going to have thermal runaway protection on your bed and your hot end. So if yeah, that's basically it. So if you want to be future proofed, go ahead, and you have an Uno still to flash your bootloader, go ahead and flash the OptiBoot bootloader and then re-upload your firmware. You just got to make sure that when you're compiling that you select the OptiBoot if that's what you have on your board. Maybe put a little note on there on the printer or something to remind you that you have the OptiBoot on there. So I just wanted to roll this out to everybody so they have it, so that way if we start doing more features where we do actually need that program space, then you guys will be ready for it and you have it there. So there's nothing right now that needs it, but I did have some questions about, oh, what's this OptiBoot thing? So I figured it would be worthwhile to pop on and explain what it is. And like I said, it's important to note that the other boards, like the Creality boards and the Wanhouse boards, those are already using the OptiBoot bootloader, especially if you used our package to flash it. We've been using the OptiBoot bootloader for the Creality machines and the Wanhouse machines and the other machines that use a bootloader other than the Anet that have the 1284 chips on them, you already have the OptiBoot, and you're not going to be able to get any further space out of it. It's already slimmed down as much as it can. But for the Anet users, you have this option if we do in the future decide to add more stuff or are able to add more stuff to take advantage of that additional program memory. So one of the things I'm looking at doing is bringing back certain menu items and slimming down the firmware. So like you can have, if you're running, you know, all sorts of options like your BL Touch or your Easy ABL, having your control motion, your steps per millimeter, that kind of stuff back on the 1284s, because that's some stuff we had to cut out of the LCD menu to make more space for the actual features. And while you can still set them by sending G-code commands, it is kind of annoying if you don't have your printer hooked up to a Pi or your computer and you're trying to dial it in. It's not the end of the world, but I figured, you know, more print features and key features in the firmware were more important than being able to adjust some step settings from your LCD screen. So, and this is all documented in our FAQ as well. So if anybody has any questions, you know, let me know. But this is basically, OptiBoot is going to give you a little more space. So if you want to future-proof yourself in case we do release a firmware with new program space requirements, then you'll be able to just update over USB. There shouldn't be any performance differences. I've tested both. There's no performance difference between the two. It's just the bootloader. Nothing fancy. It's just getting a little more life out of these boards with the more limited memory, because these only have 128K of memory. So that about wraps it up. I'm going to be doing another stream later tonight. We're going to cover the recent additions to the firmware pack, the new machines that we added in, and also do a live installation of the CR10S Pro LCD conversion kit. We're getting ready to move on those so we can get the Easy ABL Pro installed in the CR10S Pro, where we're completely bypassing their stock ABL circuitry. You will be able to use this firmware with just the 12864 LCD on the stock CR10 sensor, but if you want the best performance, then you can actually swap their sensor out for our kit. So we'll go over how to actually do that whole conversion, and we'll have a product that will include all the parts needed for that conversion. So I hope you guys learned something today. I hope it was a little bit interesting, and as always, happy printing. See you guys later on the next stream.